Dodge this.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
London calling. This is London calling on Longgrave. London calling. This is Westminster.
I am not an American. I am a free man.
I'm okay.
My life is my own.
I'm with a combat unit that's armed with automatic weapons.
Come on, Mrs. Jones. You've got to go to your second job now. You've got to earn extra money to pay the bedroom tax. I'm very lucky. I've got a second job in a chemical plant. Yeah, I'm making fluoride for Syria. They're shipping it to Syria.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to join Chris Everard in an undisclosed location deep under Buckingham Palace in Winston Churchill's war bunker.
Never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
God damn it, boy! These Brits are coming to get us!
Welcome, my friends, to the show which never ends.
My husband and I are not amused.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Deep from inside the former communist bloc, where we now torture American citizens in Poland and the Balkan states, we're tuning in to the Chris Everard Show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Everard, and we are broadcasting live on the Truth Frequency. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this incredible planet of ours. I'd like to say Happy New Year to all of our listeners, and Happy New Year to all of our people that visit my pages on Facebook. And Happy New Year to the entire globe. This is Chris Everard broadcasting live on the Truth Frequency. This show is also postcasted in a kind of video way on the Enigma channel, which is enigmatv.com, which broadcasts uncensored documentaries and movies 24 hours a day. And I'm very pleased to have 2015 here. Last year was a very, very interesting and fun year, and I hope this year is going to be a great year for all of our listeners and all of our viewers. In today's show, we are going to be discussing probably the most serious paedophile sex scandal to hit the royal family for at least 18 months. Ever since the Jimmy Savile debacle, Jimmy Savile was given a knighthood by the Queen, and he'd already been actually questioned by police about multiple sex crimes committed against young girls. Obviously, there was no MI5 background check. And the Queen still went ahead, gave Jimmy Savile an Order of the British Empire medal, OBE medal, and then he became Sir Jimmy Savile. And then he went on to the Parkinson BBC TV chat show and was even bragging to Michael Parkinson, the host of the show, that he'd smuggled a teenage girl in the trunk of his Rolls Royce and drove it to a cucumber tea party at Buckingham Palace, got this teenage girl out of his car. This is all true. I'm not making this up. He actually said this on live TV, and he introduced this teenage girl to the Duke of Edinburgh, which is the father of Prince Charles and the husband and cousin of Queen Elizabeth II. And that was not the only teenage girl that Sir Jimmy Savile procured for people. Rumours have been breaking out all over the place for the last 18 months. Now we have a new lady, a new sex crime victim. Her name is Victoria, and she's come forward in court papers which have been filed in Florida. And Prince Andrew, who is the son of Prince Philip and the brother of Prince Charles, and he's I think he's something like, I don't know, 6th in line to the throne or something, or 4th in line to the throne. This guy is a heavyweight royal. Prince Andrew, he's the second-born son to Queen Elizabeth II. This guy is a multi-millionaire. He's not like your average royal who just goes out shopping every day and doesn't do a proper job. He has actually had a job at the British government, supposedly helping corporations and businesses get on their feet and promoting British trade. And he was married to this lady called Sarah Ferguson. And their marriage, obviously being a royal marriage, cost millions and millions of pounds. Not for them, of course, but it cost millions for the taxpayers. And unfortunately, his wife was caught red-handed taking £40,000 or £50,000, that's something like $75,000 in cash from an undercover newspaper reporter, because she was selling favors so that businesses could have a meeting with her husband, Prince Andrew. And the overall fee, get this, was $750,000 to meet her husband, Prince Andrew. Now, these people are not short of a few quid. I can tell you that now. If you want to know what the official figures are, I've got them right here in front of me, and there's going to be, quite a lot of facts and figures in today's show. Officially, the royal family get £36.1 million every 12 months. That's about $50 million. So there's 52 weeks in a year. So the royal family are basically getting $1 million a week. How about that? Now, the thing is that I've researched this, and so has several other organizations. There's an organization called Republic who basically don't like the monarchy. I do like the monarchy. I don't like the monarchy we have now. I like the idea of a monarchy. I think we should have an elected king of Scotland, an elected king of Wales, an elected king of England, or queens, and they should be chucked out and thrown out of the job every 2 years, and we can have a new election for our king or queen. But basically, the £36.1 million or $50 million is only 10% of the actual money which they get, believe it or not. There's loads of other money that is taken from the wage packets of workers, which goes straight to Buckingham Palace. And all of those costs, these are the extra costs, they're all hidden. One particular cost, which wasn't so well hidden, but we managed to find out about it, is that it costs between £300,000 and £350,000 every 24 hours to pay the police to guard the royals. Now, in American dollars, that is $500,000 a day in police costs. Can you believe it? It's almost incredible. But there's lots of other bombshells. For example, there's a new heating system that's needed at Buckingham Palace. The Queen has said that the new boiler for the central heating system at Buckingham Palace, wait for this, is going to cost £1.6 million. Now, Buckingham Palace has got 7 acres of grounds in the middle of London. 7 acres is full of trees. I don't understand why they can't, have log fires, because they've obviously got 7 acres of land there. Plus also the Queen owns the Duchy of Lancaster. This is an enormous area. There's villages and there's towns on this area. There's millions of residents on the land, which is personally owned by the Queen. And obviously there's lots of farmland, lots of forests. She could have log fires everywhere and save the taxpayer $1.6 million. Now, they had a billiards room refurbished just recently, and that cost $160,000 for one room in Buckingham Palace. Now, am I saying the word extravagant? No, because we need to invent a new word. This is way beyond extravagant. This is just ridiculous. They are spending £3 million a year on maintaining their private helicopters. Now, where do these helicopters take them? Where do these custom-built Bentleys that cost a lot of money take the royals? Well, if we come back to Prince Andrew, one of the places that our taxpayers' money takes him, very nice for him, flies first class, gets picked up in a Bentley, this kind of thing, is New York. And what does he do there? Well, he goes to see his friend called Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Jeffrey Epstein is friends with Woody Allen. He is friends with Lord Peter Mandelson. Very interesting character, Lord Peter Mandelson. He was a member of Parliament before he became a lord. He was made a lord by the Queen, who's Prince Andrew's mum. And he had to resign from being in the cabinet. This is Lord Peter Mandelson, because he'd filled in a nationwide building society mortgage application form wrong. And there was a big hoo-ha, and allegedly what had happened is that Peter Mandelson had said to people, look, I'm in charge of handing out some top jobs, and if you want a top job, you can loan me some money. And a chap called Jeffrey Robinson did actually loan Peter Mandelson some money. I think it was £50,000 or £500,000. I can't remember the exact figure. And lo and behold, they made Mr. Robinson the head of the postal service. How nice for him, just in exchange for a loan. Anyway, this was a big scandal, and the guy had to resign. But this guy is well connected, very well connected. And what happened is that Peter Mandelson bounced back. He wasn't then just a member of Parliament. He then became a lord, made a lord by Buckingham Palace, very nice for him. And then he sat in the cabinet as a minister without portfolio. Now, what on earth does that mean? Usually you have a minister of defence, a minister who looks after the health service. Ministers have proper jobs. But this guy was a minister without portfolio. What does that mean? That is an official job. It sounds like a non-job, but it is a very important job. What he is he is somebody who watches every decision made in the Cabinet Office at number 10 Downing Street, and it is the job of the minister without portfolio to report back to Buckingham Palace what is going on in 10 Downing Street. If there's anything that affects the interests of the royal family, basically the minister without portfolio jumps into his chauffeur-driven Bentley or his Jaguar and goes down to the palace and has a meeting with Mum and says, oh, Mum, there's such and such legislation going on, and I believe this could be detrimental to the royal family. They run the show. The royal family run the show. At the head of every act, this is an act of Parliament, it says at the expressed permission of Her Majesty or His Majesty. That means that every single piece of law, legislation, is overseen by the Crown. Do not think for one moment that the royal family have nothing to do with politics. Like I said, Prince Andrew, he did actually have a nice job with the British government, taking bribes apparently via his wife so that you could have a meeting with him, and he would adjust legislation or put you in touch with ministers and this type of thing in exchange for large sums of money. Now, we're going to have Popeye coming on as a guest. Popeye is one of the hosts on truthfrequencyradio.com, and I'd like to wish all the hosts on Truth Frequency a Happy New Year. I'm going to bring Popeye on in a few moments. I just want to run down some of the other things which we're going to be discussing in this show. I've been making a new TV series, or several new TV series. One of them exposes, exposes a guy who I suppose a lot of people haven't heard of this guy. His name is Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky. That's MEYERLANSKY. You can look him up yourself. This guy was the American gangster godfather. He wasn't Italian. He wasn't American. He actually came from Belarus, which is north of Ukraine, part of the Russian Soviet Empire. He was Jewish, and this Meyer Lansky guy ran the biggest organized crime syndicate in America. He's also implicated with other Jewish gangsters such as Jack Rubenstein. Now, a lot of people probably don't know Jack Rubenstein, but if I say his nickname, which was Jack Ruby, a lot of people will soon realize, oh, this is the guy that killed Lee Harvey Oswald, who allegedly killed JFK. And what it is that Jack Ruby, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, and lots of other Jewish gangsters from the Lower East Side of New York, these guys were involved in the JFK assassination. And there's a new TV series on the Enigma channel, which I've narrated and helped to produce. It's called The Judas Conspiracy. It's not just about these Jewish gangsters and the JFK assassination. It goes into lots of other related areas, lots of corruption and scandals and assassinations. And it's a very, very interesting series. And you've got people like Noam Chomsky, who's actually Jewish himself, and other people making comments about, this amazing kind of unwritten portion of American and world history. There's also another show which I've been helping to produce. It's called The Weird Show, and it's exactly that. It's weird stuff, but it's weird, but it's very informative. For example, you have footage, very clear footage, I have to say, almost HD quality footage of these extraordinarily strange creatures which have been accidentally or just, on the spur of the moment filmed by cameras which are deep underwater on oil rigs. And there's lots of other creatures as well. There's, high quality photographs and high quality video footage. For example, this weird creature started walking towards these kids on a beach, and they started throwing stones at it. They actually knocked the creature out unconscious, and they ran off. When they went back, the creature had actually died. And there's very clear pictures of this creature to this day, even though this event happened a few years ago. It is still officially unidentified. It looks very weird. And that's what The Weird Show is. It's weird things, but highly informative. It's not funny, ha-ha, silly stuff. And you can subscribe to the Enigma channel. That's enigmatv.com. That's ENIGMATV.com. And it's not just TV shows. There's a whole range of uncensored movies, full 2 hours. Some of them are even 2.5 or even 3 hour movies. Things about the assassination of Princess Diana. These are all things which are routinely deleted or censored from video sharing websites like YouTube or whatever. They're the kind of films that really don't last long if ever they get uploaded anywhere. They're the kind of films that actually get cut down, or they get downloaded by various intelligence services, re-edited with all the juicy bits taken out, and then re-uploaded again. But the Enigma channel has been going since 1999, and there's a huge amount of uncensored stuff that you can watch. And, you know, our viewers contact us all the time, and they are just blown away by the range of stuff which has been censored, from school textbooks, from college courses, from mainstream TV, that's edited out of tabloid newspapers. And there's a whole range of subjects, not least of which, of course, is life in the universe and the UFO phenomenon. You've got everything there. You've got strange temples, witch covens. There's a new series called Cults coming out next week. And it's all the kind of stuff which basically Auntie BBC would not like you to watch this stuff, and it wouldn't even last. It probably wouldn't last more than a week on YouTube if it was on YouTube. There's also a big 42-part series called The Occult, and I think there's, I don't know, I think there's something like 8 episodes which I've narrated, which are already up there. This series is very, very serious stuff. It's not for the squeamish. The Enigma channel is definitely not for kids. There are cults out there, such as the Order of the Nine Angles, the Corazon Club. There's Chaos Magic Covens. Some of these people have a real political agenda. I really mean that. I mean that they are cults, but they are political, weird, occult people. They have an agenda, and they want chaos, they want war, they want destruction. And there's a good few documentaries on the Enigma channel now. Plus there's a new documentary coming out next week on the Enigma channel, which actually has interviews with some of the most senior cult members in the United States, who actually say on camera that they are deliberately working with politicians to create death, chaos, war, destruction, you name it. And it's a very serious series. This is not funny ha-ha stuff. It's not like what you get on the mainstream media. Now, before I come back to the debacle and the latest sex pedo prince scandal at Buckingham Palace, I just want to point out a few things that's been going on in the mainstream news. First of all, I just want to say something about the word austerity. We had a lot of austerity. We had a lot of politicians saying, you, meaning like you as Joe Brown in Joe Public, and your family are going to have to pay higher taxes. You're going to have to work longer work lives, retire later, have lower unemployment benefits or none at all, and lower pensions. And supposedly this austerity policy was to improve the economies of all of the European countries. And austerity has also been a policy from time to time in the United States of America. Well, I blew that wide open, and lots of other independent media reporters actually pointed out that the opposite meaning of austerity is prosperity. And so these politicians who are trying to say to you, hey, you know, we need austerity, what they're really saying is they're saying we want you, the person who votes for these politicians, to be poor. Now, what we did is we actually spread out about 150, I think it was about 172,000 shares in the end of a poster which we used on social media that said austerity is the opposite of prosperity. We did that campaign at the end of 2012. By the end of 2013, the A word, austerity, was not being used by any of these politicians. In actual fact, now what's happened is the politicians have turned around, and amazingly, there's headlines today, and this is confirmed on CNN and the BBC, and one of the headlines that I read today says global economy is on the way up. The US economy is on the way up. There's no more talk about austerity. All of the economies of Europe that were meant to be under the austerity measures are all on the way up. And basically, what's happened is that Greece has undergone a people power revolution, and there's going to be a snap election called in Greece. And now people are completely and utterly sure that the Greek government that was trying to get them to agree to these austerity high taxes is basically a scam and a sham. And the reason they think that, I'm talking about the Greek people, is because the mother of the former prime minister, this is the mother of George Papandreou, she was found to have something like £490 million in a Swiss bank account. Now, she hasn't worked for years, and there's no way that she could have earned that money. That money was obviously being siphoned off of the Greek taxpayers. I just want to say that the austerity measures with all these bailout loans that are meant to be given to Portugal, Italy, Spain, Greece, and other countries in Europe, it's all a scam. We investigated it at FYB magazine, which is a monthly magazine which I edit. We discovered that the so-called bailout money just didn't exist. It was just numbers on screens. And a lot of those politicians who signed those deals were scammers. Now, we've got a short break coming up. When we get back, we're going to be coming back with Popeye. It's a short break. Stay with us. It'll be about 2 minutes. Right. Welcome back, everyone. This is Chris Everard broadcasting live on the Truth Frequency. That's www.truthfrequencyradio.com. And one of the most popular hosts on the network, who I've been a guest on Popeye's show many times. I'm very, very pleased to have Mr. Popeye as a guest. He's coming in live from Florida. Are you there, Mr. Popeye?
How's it going, Chris?
Very, very well. And Florida is obviously right up there, and it's right in the news reports. Nearly every single headline is saying that there's this court filing that's been made by a lady whose name has now been revealed. Her name is, I believe it's something like Victoria. I think that's her name. And she's claiming that when she was basically, I think she was 17 or maybe a little bit younger than that, she was forced to have sex with various celebrities. She's named these celebrities. One of them is a high-profile lawyer who was actually involved in the legal team that got O.J. Simpson off the hook. And this guy is a former Harvard professor, and his name is Alan Dershowitz. And she's also saying that Prince Andrew, who is the son of Queen Elizabeth and the brother of Prince Charles, was also at this house or home or condo or whatever you want to call it, owned by Jeffrey Epstein. And we know for sure from flight records that Prince Andrew definitely visited Jeffrey Epstein's homes in New York and also on a private island. It's part of the US Virgin Islands. It's called Little St. James, and there's lots of islands dotted around there owned by millionaires. Sir Richard Branson has an island near there, and so does Larry Page, who's one of the bosses of Google. And Jerry Epstein is Jewish, and he basically knows lots of very wealthy Jewish lawyers and Jewish people in Hollywood. And Alan Dershowitz is a Jewish lawyer. And it seems that what's happened is that Prince Andrew's got mixed up with these people, and he was also attending parties where allegedly there were either 20 or 30 or 40 underage girls, and they were meant to be there giving massages. But unfortunately, what happened is that about 18 months ago, Jeffrey Epstein was busted, and there are now court documents that have come out from the case from about 18 months ago or so, and he he was subpoenaed for his personal laptop computer, what they discovered is he had the personal contact telephone numbers of lots of very, very powerful people. And those personal contact numbers of people like Tony Blair, Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Woody Allen, Lord Peter Mandelson, who is the minister in the British government who looks after the affairs of Buckingham Palace, these personal contact numbers were written down alongside the numbers of massage service kind of people who were supplying underage girls. And that came out about 18 or 19 months ago, or a bit longer ago than that. And Jeffrey Epstein had to serve a prison sentence for pimping and pandering out sexual favors to his rich friends with underage girls. Now what's happened is that this lady called Victoria, she's saying that she doesn't want to be bullied any longer, and there's official court papers that have been filed in Florida. Obviously, when you file court papers, they become public access documents. Anybody can look at them. And she's implicated Prince Andrew. Now, how has it, all of this been treated? What do you think? I mean, are the American people and are the people in Florida taking a lot of notice of what's going on?
Dude, this isn't in any newspaper here. Not one. There's no one talks about this stuff. No, they don't talk. You'd be surprised. I just was over in Holland, right? A couple of weeks ago, about a month ago. I spent about a week and a half over in Amsterdam, right? It's amazing what you guys see compared to what the American public sees, compared, like, the difference in media coverage. It's two absolute different animals, Chris. There's not. I have 3 local newspapers that I get each day to like comb through and see what what's being said, just like what they're putting out to the general public, right? Trying to analyze things. Not one article about this have I seen. Not one. People don't know this is going on. That's why when you tell them, there's elite pedophiles in government and high-ranking lawyers. Dershowitz, he's on CNN all the time as a contributor and as a commentator. All the time they use him as a legal commentator. You think they're going to...
That is mind-blowing.
They won't publish anything bad about him or any of those other guys. I haven't seen one story on any of these news channels, nothing over here. Nothing.
Holy cow. Well, it's certainly on the news in England, and Jeffrey Epstein is a busted paedophile. What happened is that the former wife of Prince Andrew, she's apparently she was in debt. How she gets into debt, I don't know, because she gets thousands of pounds for free from the British taxpayer. And I'm just reading a newspaper report here that was published in 2011, and her name is Sarah Ferguson, and she is the Duchess of York. Her children, by the way, are something like, I don't know, 8th in line to the throne. So she's pretty high up in the royal circles. And she got caught red-handed, charging $750,000 to a businessman for having a meeting with her husband, who is Prince Andrew. She asked for, I think, 40 grand in cash, and they handed it over to her. And she said, if you look after me, I'll look after you. Well, unfortunately, the person that gave her the cash was an undercover reporter. So this is the type of family that we're dealing with. They just take money. Anyway, she was meant to be in debt. I mean, that's the cover story. And then this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, steps in and he offers to give her a gift. I think it's something like $90,000 or $100,000 to pay off some supposed debts that Prince Andrew's former wife has. So this Jeffrey Epstein, he says he's a billionaire. He certainly seems to be a billionaire with lots of homes everywhere. And he gives Prince Andrew's wife I think, nearly $100,000. And then what happens is that Prince Andrew flies over and meets Jeffrey Epstein. And he meets him at an apartment where there's Woody Allen. Okay. Now, Woody Allen is a whole separate kind of snake pit of allegations from his children, especially one particular child. And they meet in Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in New York. Now, at the same time, Lord Mandelson is also there. And what's happened is that the housekeepers who were employed by Jeffrey Epstein have now gone on record saying that the house was full of underage girls. He used to get these girls to strap on dildo sex toys and put on sex shows for him and all of his buddies. And then in one BBC newspaper report, it actually says that Jeffrey Epstein forced this girl, they use this word, her name is Victoria, he forced her to have sex with, allegedly, Prince Andrew and this big shot lawyer who represented O.J. Simpson called Alan Dershowitz. Now, Alan Dershowitz boasts on a blog, it's called the Law Blog, and he boasts on this law blog that he actually got a handwritten, kind of buddy note from Barack Obama. And Dershowitz has also been the lawyer who's been representing Klaus von Bülow, who's this very well-connected aristocrat who was married to a woman who was previously married to Prince Salzburger. And this Klaus von Bülow allegedly murdered his wife, and Alan Dershowitz was the lawyer. This is the type of client that Alan Dershowitz has. Now, on the BBC today, there is no actual denial coming directly from Prince Andrew, because the court documents that are filed in Florida, get this, they are now on, they're on public record. Alan Dershowitz has stepped in because he's also named as being, one of these men who Jeffrey Epstein forced young girls to have sex with. And Alan Dershowitz is like the mouthpiece for Prince Andrew on the BBC. And that is what is happening so far in this case. There's a lot more complicated because Peter Mandelson, who's this guy that had to resign his job as a member of parliament, and also Woody Allen, who's been cited by one of his children as taking her up into this closet of his house in New York and taking Polaroid photographs of her when she was naked, when she was a child. Peter Mandelson and Woody Allen are all friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So, what do you think, Popeye?
Well, here, you want an example of how it's being talked about, right? Miami Herald. The Miami Herald, big newspaper in Florida, especially in South Florida. You go to their website, right? The top thing, crime. Oh, they're going to talk about this, right, Chris? No, they're talking about tax fraud in Miami-Dade College. The Hobbit tops the box office for the third weekend. And Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio topped the polls here in Florida for, future political leaders in 2016. Really? All this crap and not one word about anything of what you're talking about. Not one word.
Wow. Okay. You said that the European media has lots of news stories that you don't get in America. The other thing is that, of course, in the Netherlands where you were, there's a lot of liberal kind of laws, aren't there, where there's decriminalization of prostitution, decriminalization of these coffee shops that are allowed to sell, marijuana and hashish and magic mushroom cakes and things. I mean, did you enjoy it? I mean, I think you did. I mean, would you like to see that kind of liberal attitude in the USA?
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, I don't agree with everything that the Dutch government itself does. But yeah, there's no reason why prostitution or cannabis smoking or anything should be clamped down on the way they do it here in the States. And that might be shocking for some people to hear me say, but like prostitution, it's the world's oldest profession. It is. I mean, it goes back all the way to like Sumer and Babylon. So, like, you're not going to stop it, Chris. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to stop. Making a law that says it's illegal is not going to. Murder's illegal. People still do it to each other. We still haven't figured out how to get each other to not kill one another, right? Apparently, laws don't make that work. Maybe we should work on morals. Just saying. Yeah. Anyway, yes, it was nice.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up, of course, is because it seems that we travel around, we visit places like the Netherlands because it's a great place to go for a holiday, and there's liberal. It's almost like you step off the plane and you can smell the freedom in the air. But this is just a geographical situation with different laws in different countries. Reading through what has been going on here at Jeffrey Epstein's private island, it seems that there is no law for these rich people. Because
there's two sets of laws, Chris. There's two sets of laws.
Oh, yeah.
There's the laws that you, me, and everybody else listening to this radio broadcast, quote unquote, have to live by. And then there's the laws that these elite scumbags get to live by, which there really aren't any rules.
Absolutely. And there's large sums of money involved in this Prince Andrew scandal as well. It's not just the $80,000 or $90,000 that Jeffrey Epstein paid to Prince Andrew's wife, supposedly for her debts. How a royal person could get into debt is beyond me.
Is anybody pissed over there about this? Like, he's getting immunity. Is anybody are there people in the UK and in France and around Europe? Are there people really pissed? Because they should be.
Oh yeah, it's a very, very big news story. It's all over England. It's all over the newspapers, all over the BBC and everything. I mean, this is the second big sex scandal to hit Buckingham Palace in about 18 months, because the previous one was where they gave a knighthood and an OBE medal to this guy that had already been interviewed by the police in Leeds, which is a big city in the north of England, and he was a known paedophile, and he was still getting royal awards. And the brother of Prince Andrew, Prince Charles, actually visited this paedophile guy called Sir Jimmy Savile, who was a millionaire DJ and a millionaire TV kids presenter on the BBC. Prince Charles actually visited his home in Scotland and was photographed with this guy. And this guy abused dozens of young girls. In actual fact, there's rumors, or not even rumors, but there's people going on the record, including Paul Gambaccini, who's an American DJ who's had his own show on the BBC for 30 years. And Paul Gambaccini had an office down the corridor at BBC Broadcasting House in London that was on the in the same corridor as Sir Jimmy Savile, and he has claimed that the guy was having sex with the body of his dead mother, and he was the best friends with the Queen and Prince Charles.
It's almost like a Norman.
This guy?
Yeah, it's almost like a Norman Bates type situation. These people, these people are completely sick, Chris. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. And I have a theory about this whole thing with like Savile being thrown under the bus publicly. Same thing with Jerry Sandusky over here in the States. I have this theory. Did you notice that both of those guys, not only were they, Sandusky was a pedophile, and so was Savile, but they were also the procurers of children for much higher ranking and higher level and upper echelon scumbags and pedophiles. And that got covered up. Like, the first day or two of reporting about Jerry Sandusky, there was an article out, and people are going to have to try to find it in the Wayback Machine because I'm sure it's been scrubbed. But there was an article out in a couple different major publications that exposing how he was the procurer, and not only was he a pedophile, but he got kids for these higher-ranking people. And then it got scrubbed. Then it was just Jerry Sandusky was the pedophile, right? The focus became him as the bad guy, not so much him as the bad guy, but also what the bad guy did. That got forgotten about. It was only, he's the bad pedophile. Focus all your anger, every bit of energy on him. Same thing with Savile. He was the procurer of children, as well as a dirtbag pedophile, necrophiliac, whatever else he was into. He was a sick individual himself, yes, and he deserves to have, energy and time focused on him and to be exposed. But it doesn't end with him. It's not like Savile was the end all of it, just like Jerry Sandusky wasn't the end. They were both procurers, which meant they got kids for other people. Who are these other people? Yeah. And how come no one talks about it? So my theory is these other people are throwing them under the bus. Sandusky's old and Savile's dead. So they don't care about them anymore. They've outlived their usefulness. They get thrown under the bus while everybody feeds on their carcasses, right? The herd comes running over, whatever. The gators come running over. They're all tearing apart the carcass. You can escape. And they go and hide behind another level, another veil, and they'll continue abusing children and murdering them in their sick, twisted games until all of them are exposed.
Absolutely. Well, the official story is very convoluted. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein offered this $80,000 and $90,000 to the wife, or the former wife of Prince Andrew, to pay off her debts. And Prince Andrew, because of this kind offer, flew over to New York, and Epstein threw a cocktail party in honor of his guest, who was Prince Andrew. And Woody Allen was there, and CBS News presenter Katie Couric, she was there as well. And apparently Jeffrey Epstein took the personal assistant of the Duchess of York, a guy called Johnny O'Sullivan. Jeffrey Epstein took him aside into a cupboard and gave him £15,000. That's about $22,500, gave him cash in a little room and said, there you go, that's for the Duchess. But, that was just the first installment. Now, what happened is that Jeffrey Epstein was busted. He denied all of the charges, but he was basically busted for pimping an underage girl. And then, obviously, all of a sudden, the Duchess of York that's received this money from him and Prince Andrew that's visited the guy's private island, they all of a sudden, distance themselves from the guy. But it's exactly like what you say. They're like, he's like the pimp that's left out in the cold. If he hadn't been busted, they would still be friends. They would still be hobnobbing and having cocktail parties with Woody Allen, this type of thing. Anyway, so what happened is that there was a weird situation that also involved Jeffrey Epstein, where the home of Prince Andrew, it's a massive stately home called Sunning Hill Park. That was up on the market. And one of Jeffrey Epstein's buddies, a guy called Timur Kulibayev, who is the son-in-law of the Soviet Republic, the president of the Soviet Republic. This is the son-in-law of the president of the Soviet Republic. Paid £3 million more than the asking price on Prince Andrew's house. How does that work out? He's Jeffrey Epstein's friend. Epstein introduces this guy to Prince Andrew, and he buys Prince Andrew's stately home for $3 million more than what it's advertised for. I mean, what is going on there? I mean, I would say, looking at the cold facts of of what's come out today in the headlines, I would say that we're looking potentially at some massive multi-million pound bribe there. Then what happened, I mean, this is a very, very complicated situation here, is that there was some kind of deal done with a lady called Miss Ashkenazi, believe it or not. That is her real name. And it was some kind of gas deal in Kazakhstan. That involved Epstein. That also involved Prince Andrew as well. It's all just a viper's nest of very wealthy people who all seem to have been involved in, sex with underage children.
And by the way, just to even back this up even more, you mentioned Woody Allen. There's a Hollywood connection, right? That's just one. I mean, there's more. But that shows there's a connection to Hollywood. Now, for your listeners that don't know this, they can look this up on YouTube. There's an actor named Corey Feldman. Okay, he was a child star here. You can look up on YouTube, and I even have it up on federaljack.com, my website. You guys could just go to the search bar and look it up, or just go on YouTube and look it up. Just look up Corey Feldman talks, or Google Corey Feldman talks about pedophilia or Hollywood pedophiles. And you'll see, I mean, I did a whole broadcast about this, like a whole 2-hour show about this, where I was just playing audio clips and stuff. He says one of America's biggest problems is rampant pedophilia in Hollywood, and it's this huge open secret, meaning many people are aware of what's going on, but they just don't say anything or do anything about it. Now, I think that's even worse, because not knowing about it and being ignorant is one thing, but being willfully ignorant and allowing children to still be hurt, that's a whole different story. To me, you're on the same level as the scumbags that are hurting the children if you don't do anything about it. If you know a kid is being hurt like that, something needs to be done.
Yes, absolutely. Right, well, we've got a break coming up very, very soon. I'd like to say to all of the listeners, I'm going to actually put some more meat on the bones. I'm going to be naming the names. There's a lot more information, a lot more detail to this entire case involving Woody Allen, Prince Andrew, Prince Andrew's wife. Prince Andrew is the Duke of York, by the way. Lord Mandelson, other members of the royal circles. It's amazing. Donald Trump, Bill Clinton. That's what we're going to be discussing in the second half of the hour. My special guest is Mr. Popeye, who's also a host on Truth Frequency Radio. I'd like to wish all the Truth Frequency listeners also a very, very happy new year. And if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be growing at such a massive, fast rate. I think Truth Frequency Radio, the actual main webpage, has gone up in the Alexa rankings incredibly, and it's all down to our listeners. We thank you very much. We wish you a very happy new year as well. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Everard, and we are broadcasting live on the Truth Frequency. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are on our planet. This is the second hour of the Chris Everard Show. We're coming to you live. My actual web connection is not actually running very well because we had a big catastrophe in the northern Mediterranean. I think there was something like 80 people killed. And I had no web connection, this kind of thing. Lots of people had electricity wiped out. And very kindly, my guest for today's show, Mr. Popeye, who's also got his own show on truthfrequencyradio.com, is actually hosting the digital link because we in this area, we're in the same boat as lots of other people. There were lots of trees blown down. We went to a beach and there was literally hundreds of trees laying on the beach that had been washed down in storms, had been struck by lightning. They were all burnt out and they're all laying on the beaches. But now it's really weird. We've got really warm weather, unseasonally warm weather for this week. Last week was really good as well. Next week looks as if it's going to be pretty warm. It has not killed, even though this is meant to be the winter where we are, it's not killed off any mosquitoes. I'm sitting here now, I'm looking at a mosquito on the wall. There's usually no mosquitoes around at this time of year. I mean, I just don't know whether this global warming thing is a scam or not. It seems to me that this is very warm. In centigrade, it's about 16 or 17 degrees. We had lunch on our terrace today. Beautiful sunny weather. Didn't even need a jacket on. To put it into perspective, today was about as warm as an early summer day in England is. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, what do you think, Popeye? Are you one of these people? I mean, do you believe that there is climate catastrophe, or do you think it's all a sham?
Well, I don't believe in their little labels they like to throw on it. I believe that the climate is changing. I believe a lot of it has to do with natural cycles to a certain extent. And then there's also the fact that they fly around and spray crap into the atmosphere. And since we really don't know everything that they're spraying, we know some things, but we really don't know the extent or the full operational capacity and just the why of what they're... I mean, we understand a little bit, but not really everything. So, no, I don't buy into the cow farts and hairspray and people's SUVs are going to cause, catastrophic climate change, and the day after tomorrow is going to come and a superstorm is going to freeze the world, Chris. Oh, my God. Call Al Gore. He'll save everyone by taxing people. Can I ask you a question? How does anybody with any sense of logic accept that polluting is going to be stopped by taxing the polluters more money? Because they're still allowed to pollute. Yeah. It's just they're giving money and, hey, we're still going to dump all this crap, but we're going to give you money, so that makes it better, right? But how is that saving the planet and making the planet, quote unquote, greener? It's not. It's a scam. Yeah. It's all a scam. Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe that the climate's changing and stuff. And like I was going to ask you, is that normal weather for this time of year in France? But maybe it's got something to do with the geoengineering, Chris.
Yeah. It's very, very weird. All I can say, it wasn't, I think the last time it was warm like this in the winter here in the northern Mediterranean was the winter of 2006. So that's nearly 10 years ago. And then 2 years ago, the winter was so cold. I mean, there's millions of palm trees in this region. And it was so cold 2 years ago that the tops of the palm trees were frozen, and some of them fell off where they were so frozen. So I think we're really having some extremes here. Also, the other thing I'd like to say is that the first 5 months of last year were extremely dry. It was like a drought, but what was really interesting, none of the mainstream news media were mentioning it. It's like, whoa, ever since all of the water services in Europe were sold off to private companies, you're not allowed to mention the D word, which is drought. Then what happened is that we had a lot of rain right in the middle of the summer, which is very unusual here. Usually, once the summer starts, it sets in, there's no rain whatsoever. So I don't know what to think. I mean, I can see that there's a lot of chemtrails. I've seen chemtrailing planes over my house. They actually chemtrailed my house with a circular chemtrail. I've posted up that picture on social media. Circular, it was a circle of chemicals right over my house. So, I'm a big believer in chemtrails. I wasn't a believer. I was kind of sitting on the fence, and I was in denial until 2 chemtrail planes came over with being followed by military jets, and they did a real big chemtrailing number on my house. And that was in the summer of 2007. And I filmed it, and not only did we see that, and we filmed it in HD, but there were also these small spherical metallic kind of, I suppose they're only about the size of large beach balls. There was these small unidentified flying objects weaving in and out of the chemtrail spray. And if you want to see it, I mean, I'm not kidding you. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up. If you want to see the footage, you can subscribe to the Enigma channel, because we had 30 house guests, or 32 house guests. It was filmed on 3 cameras, And those 3 cameras came from 3 different countries using 2 different video systems. One was PAL, and 2 of them were NTSC. And you can see these UFOs, very small spheres, weaving in and out of the chemtrails right over my house. And that was 2007. And there were 2 planes, unmarked, silver. There was no paint job on them, unless it was silver paint. They were almost flying wingtip to wingtip, and there were 4 chemtrail trails coming out of each of those planes. Within about 35 minutes, we'd gone from a perfect, absolutely perfect blue Mediterranean sky. It was like looking up, it was like standing on the inside of a giant ping pong ball. The sky just went dull white and grey. So, I was in denial. It took that incident to convince me, basically. Are you somebody that believes in chemtrails?
Oh yeah, I totally believe that those aren't normal contrails from a jet. And you know what? I started noticing this back in the 90s. This is before, I had even looked into or heard the term chemtrail or anything like that. I remember, and I used to have conversations like I would say to my mother. We'd be out in the backyard, because when I was a kid, I grew up playing outside. Ooh, grand concept here in the United States now. People get the cops called on them for that. But when I was a kid, during the summer, when it was 8 o'clock in the morning, the clock struck 8. My door opened to my bedroom. The covers got ripped off my bed, and I promptly got yanked out of the bed. My mother was like a drill instructor like that. We had to get up and either go do chores or get out of the house and go play. She didn't want us sitting in the house all day. She wanted us to go be active.
Oh, it sounds like Full Metal Jacket.
Right, exactly. But she wanted us to go play to a certain extent. So she would throw us outside. So growing up, I was always outside playing in the woods or, hanging out with my friends or whatever, going and getting in trouble. And I was always looking up at the sky. And I was used to always seeing blue skies with big, fluffy, puffy, cotton-like clouds. And then in the 90s, I started to notice that when jets would fly across, that they would, you start to see these lines, and then it would kind of, over the course of time, spread out, and the sky would get hazy. And it took me, I didn't notice it right away. It took me a little bit, but one day I remember staring at the sky, because I used to sit at my backyard, on my patio, and I was smoking a cigarette, and I was just staring up at the sky, and I was like, what is all that? I don't remember clouds looking like that when I was a kid. And then over the years, I just kept looking at it and pondering it. And then one day on the internet, I stumbled across something about chemtrails. I don't like to use the word chemtrails because it's almost like a label. And people say chemtrails because they don't know what's in them and they know there's some sort of chemical or metal or whatever in them. I prefer to use the term geoengineering only because it's more scientifically all-encompassing for what they're doing, because they're basically using our atmosphere like a large science experiment. And they're doing it for a plethora of reasons. I mean, they're even trading weather on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Chris. Did you know that? They actually bet. Oh, wow. Yeah, they actually bet on whether or not it's going to rain, and because if it doesn't rain, they can also then bet if a crop will fail. And they'll make more money if a crop fails than they do if the crop is prosperous. So think about that for a second. They don't care if the crop is prosperous and people can eat. They don't care if your children can have food in their mouths, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. They only care about how much money they're going to make. So if they're going to make more money making sure that crop fails and people go hungry, guess what? You're going to starve.
That's it. This is the weird world of futures trading. And it's a very, very scary world. And Popeye's absolutely right. These people don't care. It's like a kind of betting for the aristocracy. That's really how I can best describe the futures market. They've got futures on everything. If things turn out bad, you can make money. If things turn out good, you can make money. And like Popeye says, if a crop fails, you can still make money on it. It's a very weird world. The thing about chemtrails that I find interesting is that, more cloud means that the crops, which are growing rye, barley, oats, wheat, the kinds of bulk ingredients that go into things like Doritos and cornflakes and all of the processed mainstream foods that we see in their stores, when you get a cloudier sky, it makes those crops, it kind of makes them ripen slower. And I've noticed that in the areas where I've been visiting in the last couple of years, where they've had just like, blue sky, sun, and then we've had very hot summers just in the last couple of summers, the crops were ripening and they'd only reached about, 18 inches in height. And the yield from a field where you've got ripened wheat, for example, which is only 18 inches high, it's not the usual 2.5 feet high, the yield is about 50% in weight, in volume of harvested wheat. And it made me think, are these chemtrails creating the ping pong effect where it's, turning a blue sky white? Are they doing this to protect the mainstream cereal crops? Because that's how, all the big food companies that are making bread and burger buns and biscuits, burritos, this is how they're making their money. And maybe global warming is happening and they're using chemtrailing techniques to try and protect their crops. But then the weird thing is that I was speaking to archaeologists in Australia, and they said they'd been in the outback in the middle of nowhere, and there were planes chemtrailing the outback where there is nothing. So it's a mysterious phenomenon. I'm really not sure exactly what to think about it.
When I was in Amsterdam, I walked out of Central Station. I got over there. I was over there for a week and a half. So it was Thanksgiving Day here when I was over there, right? I land.
Oh, yeah.
It's early morning. I get out. I at least, walk from Central Station to my friend's apartment, go drop my bag off. And I'm like, let's go get breakfast. Let's go to a coffee shop. We walk out of the apartment, and I look up, and there's literally a trail right down Dyke Street, which is the street we were staying on, which is right down in the middle of the red light district. And there's literally a trail right down the street, like crisscrossing the entire red light district. And then as we walked around that day, you could literally see them. I have pictures and video. You just see them flying all over Holland, just spraying. Now, why would you be spraying why, if it's not a global thing, if they're not actually experimenting, why am I seeing the exact same type of thing there as I see here? And I'm telling you, the skies didn't look like that when I was a kid. I know you remember the skies when you were a kid too, Chris. When we grew up, the skies were blue with white puffy clouds, and if you saw a contrail, it dissipated very quickly, as it should, because ice crystals floating around in the atmosphere, ladies and gentlemen, are in direct sunlight. So unless the ice crystal is on steroids, okay, and it's super ice crystal, the sunlight will melt it. It doesn't matter if it's cold in the atmosphere. Between the temperature of the atmosphere versus the extreme exposure to sunlight at that high of an altitude with less protection from everything that we have down here on the planet, closer to the ground, those things melt. Like 30 seconds to a minute, maybe a minute and a half. They're ice crystals, okay? They dissipate rather quickly. Real contrails do not hold up in the sky for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then turn into this wispy, spiderwebby stuff, and then make the sky look all gray and nasty. They're spraying something, and they engineer the weather. Everybody needs to. It's 2015. How come you can accept that you can watch videos on your phone, and you can have a video conversation with somebody across the planet, but it's hard for you to accept that they could modify the weather? How come people... We can remotely control a rover on Mars. We can land something on a comet, but controlling the weather on our own planet is just a crazy conspiracy theory? They were doing it in the 50s. You guys actually flooded out a bunch of villages over in the UK back in the 50s. Yeah. They were cloud seeding, and they ended up taking out like 2 or 3 villages or little towns or whatever. And then we started using it in the 60s, ironically called Project Popeye. They used it to take out the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They dropped more ordnance, Chris, on the Ho Chi Minh Trail during Vietnam than we did in all of Europe during World War II. They still couldn't stop the North Vietnamese. They started cloud seeding, wiped out the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So tell me again that they don't use geoengineering or weather modification.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, they have lots and lots of patents that are on public record, and they do actually use these phrases, like you say, geoengineering. And I know a pilot, and I mentioned chemtrails to a pilot, and he said, yeah, big deal. It's cloud seeding. I mean, he thought this was normal stuff because he was just an asleep person, and he thought that the government is there to look after you. I want to say this to the listeners, is that more and more people, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people, weekly, monthly, are waking up to the fact that you do not even need a government. And these governments, by and large, I wouldn't say every single government, but nearly every single government is riddled with corruption, the same as a body is riddled with cancer. It's a disease which is running through the whole system. And if you think that they wouldn't, spend trillions of dollars on chemtrailing, I'd ask you to think again. I do remember going to a UFO conference and giving a big lecture with 2 hours of video footage of UFOs from all over the world. And the event was organized by the British UFO Research Association, and the BBC were there. And I do remember a guy standing up in the audience. He said something very profound. And he said, "He who controls the weather controls the world." And I know it sounds like Dr. Evil, and it sounds like a kind of James Bond, Spectre kind of weird, kind of ultra criminal type situation. But, really, like Popeye says, the technology is there, and it's the patents are there, So you can't really deny it easily. It's like the elephant sitting in your living room.
All you got to do is look up. And when people go, that's normal. No, man, it's not normal. Just go back and look at pictures. The easiest way to take a reference is go back in your family albums and go back and look at pictures from especially if you're in your late 30s, early 40s, right? Look back at the pictures of the 70s and even the early 80s, but like early 80s, 70s into like late 60s, there'll be pictures of the sky. Now take those pictures, even as old and grainy as some of those photos are. Compare them to the pictures of the sky today. You'll see the difference. I mean, it's plain as the nose on your face. You got to stop the. You know what it is, Chris? It sounds so fantastical to people that they're like, "No, that's like science fiction." But yet, again, they'll accept that we can put a rover on another planet and remotely control it.
Yes.
But the idea that the planes on 9/11 could have been remotely flown into the buildings is a crazy conspiracy theory because that technology doesn't exist. Well, how the hell are we controlling a rover on Mars? Like, you can't have it both ways. Either you can control a rover on another planet remotely, which would obviously mean you have the capability of remotely controlling anything here on our planet. Either you accept all of that or you don't accept any of it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's the same thing with geoengineering. If the evidence is right there in your face, you have to be like, okay, I can't. You don't have to. You could willfully deny it and be ignorant and be like, no, that's a contra. It's water vapor. It's water vapor, Chris.
I stumbled across a website the other day with one of these rovers. It was on the surface of Mars. It'd been put up there quite a long time ago. The batteries are still going, and it'd done all of its duties. And they'd opened up the control panel to the public. And you could put your name down on the list. And then when your name comes up on the top of the list, you get 10 minutes to control this rover using your iPad. And it's crawling over the surface of Mars. That is real. I can't remember the name of the rover now, but it's pretty mind-blowing. Now, we're going to come up to the last part of the show soon because there's a break coming up. And I'm going to get into some real name the names of these people that are at the top of the royal pedo sex crimes, because this is a very, very important thing that's happening. It's showing people that the royal elite and all of these millions of pounds which are being pumped into the royals, that's actually money that's being stolen from people's wage packets. is really being used to fund what I would say is very dubious activities. And one of the people that I want to bring up here is a lady called Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, Robert Maxwell was her father, and she, her father owned a lot of newspapers. He was an Israeli businessman. He came to England as an immigrant. He worked very hard. He built up an enormous empire. But unfortunately, a lot of journalists at his newspapers did actually leave, and Robert Maxwell became a billionaire. And all of a sudden, one day he went out onto his boat for a little trip, and he didn't come back home. His death is still a mystery. Well, his daughter...
Wait. He went for a boat ride and never came back?
Yeah.
That's like The Godfather, what they did to Fredo. They take Fredo out to the middle of the lake and pop him. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, probably. Well, his daughter now is one of the best friends of Prince Andrew, and she's also one of the friends of Jeffrey Epstein. And she has inherited this gigantic kind of empire that Robert Maxwell created. So she's extraordinarily wealthy. And anyway, what happened basically is that Jeffrey Epstein was busted. And what happened is that the call logs from his voicemail machines, his actual telephone voicemail machines in his homes, were procured by judges in this first pedophile criminal case. And he served 13 or 15 months of an 18-month sentence. Well, what is really interesting is listening to all of these phone calls coming into Jeffrey Epstein's telephones, because they're royal people, they're millionaires, they're billionaires, they're multimillionaires, they're Hollywood actors. It's really interesting. And the Daily Mail newspaper have written a really good report. It said that school children were among hundreds of callers who apparently telephoned to arrange massages for this 58-year-old billionaire paedophile who served 13 or 15 months in prison, whose best friends were Woody Allen, best friends with Prince Andrew. And the Daily Mail newspaper says, oh, have we got a break coming up? I think we have.
Yep, the break's almost here.
Oh, the break's almost here. Stay with us, everyone, because it's a very short break. Hello, everyone. This is the last segment of the Chris Everard radio show. I've really enjoyed doing this show. My special guest is Mr. Popeye, who's live with us from Florida. And we've been discussing the royal pedophile scandal. This is the second scandal that has hit the royal family in London in about 18 months or 2 years. The first one of recent times was Sir Jimmy Savile, which we discussed in the first part of the show. But there's also been other sex scandals as well. The famous Profumo affair, that's a really weird one, where a guy called Stephen Ward was pimping a lady called Christine Keeler and one of her friends as well. And this Stephen Ward guy was some kind of osteopath doctor, and he was friends with the father of Prince Andrew. And the father of Prince Andrew is called the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. And there was an exhibition of paintings in London with beautiful, really accurate portrait paintings done by Stephen Ward, who'd pimped these girls out to celebrities, members of the Astor family, and royal people as well. And a spy from MI5 was sent down to this art gallery. I'm not making this up. A spy was sent down from MI5 to take the painting that Stephen Ward had done of Prince Philip off the wall, because it proved to the public that this pimp who'd been pimping out these young girls to these celebrities really knew the royal family. He really knew the father of Prince Andrew. And Prince Andrew right now is being named in Florida court documents, and it's amazing. And I've been going through the transcripts of voicemail messages on Jeffrey Epstein's telephones. This is a billionaire who's friends with Prince Andrew. One of the messages concerns Ghislaine Maxwell, who I mentioned before the break. She's a multimillionairess. She was the daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell. And there were school kids ringing Jeffrey Epstein's phone. One of them, pardon me, left a message. It was either for Ghislaine Maxwell or some person which we're not sure of, called Sarah. And this schoolgirl says that she doesn't know what time that she must come to Jeffrey Epstein's apartment for a massage. I mean, this is weird stuff. Other messages for Epstein contain, various phrases. Like, for example, somebody says, she has females for Mr. J.E. Now, J.E. is obviously Jeffrey Epstein. Another message says, I have a female for him. And then there's another one saying with sickening overtones, it comes from someone called Jean-Luc, and this is a message for Jeffrey Epstein, and it says, he just did a good one, 18 years. She spoke to me and said, I love Jeffrey. And this goes on and on and on. And there's actually even notes, these actual telephone messages, which have actually been subpoenaed by a judge. And again, it mentions Woody Allen and it mentions other friends of Prince Andrew. And Popeye, I am amazed that this kind of thing is not on the headlines in America, because it involves all of those elements that you would think that the mainstream media would like. It's got Hollywood movie stars like Woody Allen, it's got members of the royal family, and it's got billionaires. I mean, how can they miss out on this?
If you go to Fox News, foxnews.com, right, one of the biggest, because Fox News, unfortunately, even though they all lie, Fox News out of the three big cable networks over here is like the most popular. Hey, if you go to Fox News' front page right now and you look, there is no mention of it at all. None. I'm scanning it right now. Okay, there's only one. It says Buckingham Palace issues second denial of underage sex crimes against Prince Andrew. And if you click on it, and it's this little tiny thing at like about 3/4 of the way down the page. And if you click on it, the article is extremely small. It's not very large. Okay, and it said it mentions Jeffrey Epstein. It mentions the case, but it mentions that she was forced to have sex. But it was just. It's pretty much focusing just on what she says, and it's a very small, quick article, and that is it. It doesn't connect how it's connected to Hollywood. It doesn't like we all know it is. If you dig, all you have to do is look. It's not like Chris is coming on air and making connections that there's not. It's not like I'm coming on air and making connections that they're not. All we're doing is pulling back the covers completely. Right now, you're just seeing a toe. When they told you, you're just seeing the big toe. We're ripping the covers off and showing you everything. Okay? Seriously. Yeah. So that's what you have on the front of Fox News. One tiny, and it's buried. And it's this tiny little article, and it only addresses the woman itself and the claims. And it's very short, very quick, and that's it. And then you don't see anything else. Drudge Report, I think, has maybe 2 links on it. And then all the paper, like you would expect the local Florida websites and papers to be nope,
for sure.
None.
Right. Well, the lady that first made these court paper filings in Florida, I'm looking at a picture of her now. Her name's Virginia Roberts. And, she contacted one of the British newspapers. I just want to read the listeners this little report from this British newspaper called the Daily Mail, because it involves former President Bill Clinton. Now, remember, Bill Clinton denied any sexual contact whatsoever with Monica Lewinsky. I'm not really an expert on the Monica Lewinsky case. It seems to me that there may have been, it takes 2 to tango, and I'm not sure whether Monica Lewinsky was encouraged to do what she did. I'm not really sure exactly what the situation was. But what I do know is that Bill Clinton lied, and he denied the whole thing. But anyway, this Daily Mail report here, because basically the British newspapers have revealed today the name of the woman who filed the legal action in Florida. Her name is Virginia Roberts. There are photographs of her with Prince Andrew. He's got his hand round her waist. She's very young. Different countries have different, legal ages for sex and everything. But I mean, she wouldn't be legal in most countries. But anyway, the Daily Mail says, as a New Yorker from humble beginnings, Jeffrey Epstein played on his blue-collar credentials and enormous wealth to extend tentacles of influence throughout America's liberal political elite. During the outcry over the Epstein case, it emerged that another man with a notorious appetite for young women, Mr. Bill Clinton, traveled with Epstein to a number of destinations, including 3 times on Jeffrey Epstein's private aircraft. And where they were going, 2 of those times, was a little tiny island. It's called Little St. James's Island. And that's where, I believe, that there was 20, 30, maybe as many as 40 young girls on this island. Now, the housekeepers of that particular property on Little St. James, they are South African. And they've gone on record and they've said there was a girl there called Tila, Tila, and they thought that she wasn't even 16. They thought that she was younger than 16. There was other girls there. And in the court case that came out just prior to Jeffrey Epstein being busted, he was getting these young girls to put on sex acts as a kind of floor show, like the types of things that you see, like in places like Amsterdam, where you've got all those kind of sex shows on stage. And he would invite all of these. Allegedly, he would invite Alan Dershowitz, Woody Allen, Prince Andrew to, witness these shows and then have sex with these girls. But it wasn't where the girls wanted to have sex. The BBC actually said that he forced these young girls to have sex with these celebrities. Now, going on to this Daily Mail thing, Epstein donated more than £75,000. That's about $118,000. Epstein donated more than $118,000 to candidates of the Democratic Party. And he flew around in a private jet with Bill Clinton, and he went to Russia, Oslo, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Beijing, all with Bill Clinton and Democratic Party candidates. Virginia Roberts, who's started this legal action in the courts in Florida, she does actually say that she was never kind of prostituted or loaned out to Bill Clinton, but she does make accusations against others. But she says on one occasion, Epstein did invite 2 young brunettes to a dinner, which he gave on his Caribbean island for Bill Clinton, shortly after he'd left the White House. Now, what she also says, she says, at the time I was about 17 years old. I flew to the Caribbean with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. That is the multimillionaire daughter of Robert Maxwell. And what's really interesting is that there are photographs of Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew leaving a big kind of big royal party, driving a convertible Bentley. They obviously hang around together. There's been rumors that they were even lovers. So you can see what a kind of amazing circle of people this is. You've got billionaires, millionaires, Hollywood celebrities, Woody Allen, Prince Andrew, the daughter of a media mogul, and it's not in the headlines. So what's going on? Surely it's got to be mainstream censorship. This is the only thing that can be. Anyway, what this young lady says, she'd always wanted to fly on a private jet, and Jeffrey paid this young girl to take some flying lessons. Then what happened is that Bill Clinton had the Secret Service with him going to this island where he was meeting with these young girls. And anyway, that's the end of that article, more or less. But it is really, really fascinating. And, massages were being offered by this Jeffrey Epstein guy to Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz, by the way, as I said earlier, he is actually a top lawyer, and he's represented O.J. Simpson and Klaus von Bülow, who's one of these big-time multi-millionaire aristocrats who allegedly killed his wife with an injection of insulin. Could it get any worse than that? Now, I'm just looking for another... I've got a report here about Woody Allen and this guy. By the way, I just want to read this other report here. It says, according to former child sex slave Virginia Roberts, that's the lady who's filed these legal actions in Florida, she's got a class action lawsuit against this convicted billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. She says that Bill Clinton was present during sex parties involving up to 20 underage girls at Epstein's secluded island in the Caribbean. This report also says flight records show that Bill Clinton was flown on numerous occasions to the island on Epstein's private jet. Clinton had a close relationship with an employee of Epstein's who compiled thousands of photos of nude young girls posed in sexual positions. And these photos were used as a catalogue for Jeffrey Epstein to loan out his girls to powerful politicians and British royalty, including Bill Clinton. Now, the actual text of this lawsuit, it's been filed in Florida. I've got it here in front of me. Basically, this is what the young lady is saying. She's saying that Bill Clinton was friends with an unnamed woman who kept images of naked underage children on her computer, helped to recruit underage children for Jeffrey Epstein, and photographed underage females in sexually explicit poses. While Jeffrey Epstein was indicted and jailed for his pedophilia, Bill Clinton oddly has remained unscathed, more than likely by having friends in high places. Anyway, Bill Clinton is in, it says here, hang on, I'm just reading here. Now, I just want to go on to the part about Woody Allen, because there's a report here as well attached to these court papers. It says that Woody Allen was spotted strolling on New York's Upper East Side with billionaire child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. I'm just looking here. Epstein served 13 months in jail of an 18-month sentence after being convicted as a sex offender in the state of Florida for soliciting an underage girl for prostitution. That is a very, very serious thing. He is a registered sex offender and remains under investigation by the FBI over allegations of involvement with underage girls and for money laundering. But nonetheless, there are photographs of him walking around with Prince Andrew in Central Park and walking around with Woody Allen. So what's happening? And there's voice messages, and in his personal contacts book, he had Peter Mandelson's private number, Tony Blair's contact details, all mixed up with these massage services. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about Woody Allen here, because this is all part and parcel of this report that I came across when I was looking at the Florida court papers. What it says here is that Woody Allen is friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Woody Allen took pictures of a girl. I'm not sure whether I think it's his stepdaughter. Her name is Soon Yi Previn. Now, I believe that she is his stepdaughter and that she is the real daughter of Andre Previn, the orchestral conductor, and Mia Farrow. And Woody Allen allegedly took pictures of Soon-Yi Previn, and this featured this whole thing where he was taking pictures of this young girl, his stepdaughter. We know about it because it leaked out during his divorce proceedings with Mia Farrow, and the presiding judge labeled Woody Allen's behavior as grossly inappropriate. The behavior included full frontal Polaroids of this young girl, his stepdaughter, posing with her legs spread apart. And, I won't go in if it's very explicit here. It says, additionally, Farrow alleged that Woody Allen had molested their 7-year-old daughter, who is adopted, and her name is Malone, but now she's called Dylan Farrow. Now, remember, Woody Allen was at a cocktail party and is best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, who had Prince Andrew as a guest at least 3 times at his private residences. And you can see photographs of Prince Andrew with young girls. And one of those girls has now filed these papers in a Florida court saying that she was forced to have sex with top people. I just want to go back on this Woody Allen thing. He took pornographic photographs of his adopted daughter, Soon-Yi Previn, and then he started having an affair with her when she was 17 years old. I'm not actually sure how old Woody Allen is, but he's pretty old. He's as old as a typical British pensioner, I think. In March 2005, a woman contacted Palm Beach police concerned that her 14-year-old stepdaughter had been taken to Jeffrey Epstein's mansion by an older girl and has been paid $300 after stripping to her panties and massaging Jeffrey Epstein while he masturbated. This is all on public record. This guy is the friend of Prince Andrew. It says by 2011, at least 40 girls aged between 13 and 17 had come forward with similar stories, some saying Jeffrey Epstein sexually assaulted them during these massage sessions. Now we've got a situation where Virginia Roberts, by the way, she now lives in Australia, but she was born in Sacramento in California. Virginia Roberts is saying in official court records that she was sexually molested. She was molested actually before this at the age of 11 in Palm Beach in Florida. And her father was a maintenance manager at Donald Trump's country club, which is called Mar-a-Lago. Now, at the age of 15, she met Ghislaine Maxwell, and Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell, who's an Israeli businessman who many people say allegedly was murdered by Mossad. And this guy's a multi-millionaire. He controlled about a third of all the local and national newspapers in Britain. He was like a Rupert Murdoch of his day, and he went out on his boat and he just didn't come back one day. Now his daughter, who has inherited this vast media mogul fortune, she arranged for this 15-year-old girl to work at Jeffrey Epstein's house as a masseuse at 15. And this Ghislaine Maxwell, she's Jewish. Jeffrey Epstein's Jewish. Robert Maxwell, her father was Jewish. I mean, I have to mention these things because we can see that some of the men going there for these massage sessions with this 15-year-old girl, I have to say this, they are also Jewish. I'm not making this up, but I think it's fair to paint a proper picture here. Woody Allen is Jewish. Virtually everyone in this scenario is Jewish. Alan Dershowitz, the top lawyer who represented O.J. Simpson, he's Jewish, and he was meant to be there as well, allegedly. And it seems really weird. The only non-Jewish person in this kind of weird sex pedo ring seems to be Prince Andrew. But a lot of people say that because of their links to the Habsburgs and the Hanoverian bloodlines, the royal family are actually Jewish. And I have to say that Princess Anne, who's the sister of Prince Andrew, does, this sounds terrible to say this, but she doesn't really look very British to me. She looks like she is a kind of Mediterranean Jewish type person. Anyway, this young girl from the age of 15 worked for 4 years at Jeffrey Epstein's property. For 3 of those years, she was under Florida's age of consent. So she was underage for Florida's age of consent. And in the court papers, she says, basically, I was training to be a prostitute for him and his friends who shared his interest in young girls. The way it usually worked was I'd be sent to meet a man at his ranch in New Mexico. Now, this is Jeffrey Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. And she said this ranch was really isolated. She said, I met famous friends of Jeffrey Epstein, and that included Al Gore, Donald Trump, and Kevin Spacey, the Hollywood actor. And basically, the court filings, this is a civil case. It's very, very well detailed. It's going to take, I mean, if I was to read all of this, it would take more than 2 hours. We're going to run out of time very, very soon. Now, I just want to say this thing about Epstein's personal phone directory. They managed to get hold of a phone directory which was from his computer, and it also had not only phone numbers, but it also had email addresses. It's a very interesting set of documents, this. It had, this is Jeffrey Epstein, this pedophile who is convicted, who had these young girls working as masseurs. He had the email addresses and private telephone numbers for former President Bill Clinton. In actual fact, he had 21 phone numbers for Bill Clinton. And some of those phone numbers were actual personal phone numbers of former President Bill Clinton. Court documents in that case claimed he routinely sought out underage girls and paid them $200 to $1,000 for sexual massages in his homes in Palm Beach, Florida, and in Manhattan. Now, Jeffrey Epstein would have got a longer sentence than what he did, but he signed a secret non-prosecution deal under which the government agreed to drop its investigation into the string of sex crime allegations if Epstein confessed to prostitution felonies in Florida state court. So what I'm basically saying is that, this is the second time that this guy has been the subject of filings or illegal action. This time it's in Florida. The first time he was busted and he did a prison sentence, he actually did a deal with the police. So there may have been other crimes which we wouldn't know about because that's the way these deals go. Now, Woody Allen's daughter, Dylan Farrow. Now, Woody Allen was at a cocktail party that was hosted by Jeffrey Epstein, and it was thrown in honor of Prince Andrew when he was going over there. And the personal assistant of Prince Andrew's former wife received £15,000 in a brown paper envelope in cash in a back room during that cocktail party. Who was there? Woody Allen was there. Now, in these related documents, I just want to say, we're running out of time. I don't believe it. Okay, well, we will follow up this big story in further shows. Thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you to Popeye. Happy New Year to everyone. This is Chris Everard signing off.